जी दीदी।
वर्ष
जय गुरुदेव।
11 11
जी दीदी।
का
जी
श्लोक
दीदी।
पढ़िए।
जी दीदी। ओ श्री परमात्मने नमः। अथ चतुर्थोऽध्यायः। ॐ ये यथा मां प्रपद्यन्ते तांस्तथैव भजाम्यहम्। मम वर्तमानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः। काङ्क्षतः कर्मणां सिद्धिं यजन्त इह देवताः। क्षिप्रं हि मानुषे लोके सिद्धिर्भवति कर्मजा। ओ जय गुरुदेव।
Sunita, can you read the verse?
Yes, ma'am. Jai Gurudev. As men approach me, so do I favor them. In all ways, O Partha, men follow my path. As men approach me, so do I favor them. It is an established natural law that action and reaction are equal to one another. In the fullness of divinity, God is ever full, and like the water of a great lake, so does this fullness remain. The water has a tendency neither to flow away nor to resist flowing. It just remains as it is. If a farmer wants to take water to his field, he brings a pipe up to the level of the water. The water does not refuse to flow once the pipe is raised to its level. Furthermore, Sri Krishna Bhagavan says, in all ways, O Partha, men follow my path. This has a different meanings at the different levels. First, the nature of man is like the nature of God in that man behaves to others as others behave to him. Secondly, learning that the nature of the Lord is such that he himself does not take any initiative, that he only responds. People try to derive the maximum benefit from surrendering themselves completely to him through meditation, which is the direct way to God consciousness. One who reaches this state, truly losing his limited identity, gains the status of unbounded eternal being in God consciousness. The Lord's purpose in disclosing this essential characteristic here is the rise to the unlimited status of eternal existence in God consciousness. It is open to all. Thirdly, the natural tendency of every man is to turn towards greater happiness and therefore to proceed towards the eternal happiness of God consciousness. This is another reason why Sri Krishna Bhagavan says, in all ways, O Partha, men follow my path. Finally, in all ways, O Partha, men follow my path indicates that God's own consciousness is the sole guiding factor of man's consciousness. It underlies all life in the cosmos and is the basic motivating intelligence of all beings. Cosmic intelligence upholds man's intelligence. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you, Sunita. If they can unmute me.
You are
So,
unmuted, ma'am.
okay. So can you hear me? Now
Yes,
in
ma'am.
this verse 11, as men approach me, so do I favor them in all ways. Men follow my path. Short introduction I'll be giving to this verse, in which Shri Krishna Bhagavan says, whatever way people surrender to me, I reciprocate accordingly, and everyone follows my path knowingly or unknowingly. It means here that everyone who has now surrendered, it becomes my duty to see that they are on the right path. And we have to remember one great thing, that do unto others as you want others to do unto you. So here two important things are there. One is what Maharishi says, to every action, there is a reaction. So whatever you will behave to others, you will get it back to you. Now, Sri Krishna Bhagwan in the same context says that if you surrender to me, I will take care of you. And he says, the most important thing he says, secondly, is that the people who want to derive the maximum benefit in their life, it is through surrendering themselves completely. And how do you surrender yourself completely? Is through meditation, because meditation is the direct way to God consciousness. Basically, we are seeing and we are studying Bhagavad Gita to understand how we want to inculcate in us the divine existence. Not that divine existence that we are working for to go at the higher states of consciousness will only come through transcendental meditation. And here Krishna Bhagavan tells Arjuna, this is the direct way. This is the easy way to attain eternal existence in God consciousness. The third point here he mentions is that we all have the tendency to seek greater happiness. Why do we do meditation? We do meditation for greater happiness, greater self actualization, greater, because self-referral consciousness that we talk about gives us what? That I will tell you in scientific research. But the nature of the human being is to go in for greater happiness. Even when we do transcendental meditation, we have given one very nice example, that the bee goes on wandering from flower to flower. And when it has taken honey from all the pollens of the flower, it goes to the hive. Why? Because now she is happy and satisfied. Similarly, Shri Krishna Bhagavan says, the natural tendency of every man is to go to greater happiness. And this happiness comes for one great reason, that you surrender everything to me. And here means Sri Krishna Bhagavan in the form of transcendental consciousness. And then he says in the last most important line, so remember, cosmic intelligence upholds man's intelligence. So what is that man's intelligence? Man's intelligence is to reach to the self-referral state of consciousness. So this verse 3 has very important 3 points. The action has a reaction. Do unto others as you want others to do unto you. Tendency to work towards divine existence. Thirdly, the natural tendency for greater happiness. Now, these 3 points have been proven in Maharishi scientific research, which says, as men approach me, so do I favor them. It means that the growth of self-actualization takes place, which includes the development of openness, receptivity, a caring attitude, cheerfulness, and a positive thinking. Spontaneity, freshness of appreciation, self-sufficiency, loss of fear of death, and acceptance of self, nature, and acceptance of others. The beautiful scientific research through Maharishi Transcendental Meditation says, then we grow into the greater respect for the view of others, greater attentiveness to others, improved ability to appreciate others, and increased ability to cooperate and have great social responsibilities. So when we reach that level of consciousness, you see the outcome is so beautiful and the outcome is so outstanding that one by very nature is forced to go into TM, do the program regularly, and this is what exactly this work is conveying to us. Jai Gurudev, now you can ask any questions if you want to ask. Thank you.
Jai Gurudev. I just joined Anita ji. Thank you for your comments. Any questions? So Anita ji, looks like no question. Shall we move on?
Ji Hema ji.
Yeah. So what shloka are we on now?
And we are on 12th shloka, Hema ji.
So you covered 11. Manish ji, Manish ji, 12.
दीदी
श्लोका नंबर 12
जी दीदी
संस्कृत में पढ़ना और अनीता जी will display Sunita ji and
I'll be reading Hema ji 12 and 13. And
okay.
Sunita will be reading 14th.
Yeah, I will read the English translation and you read the commentary. Anita ji, okay?
Yeah. Okay, yes.
Manish ji, go ahead.
जी दीदी ओ कांक्षतः कर्मणां सिद्धिं यजन्त इह देवता क्षिप्रं हि मानुषे लोके सिद्धिर्भवति कर्मजा ओ
Those who desire fulfillment of actions here on earth make offerings to the gods. For success born of action comes quickly in the world of men. Jai Gurudev. Anita ji, go ahead.
Success is certainly gained by effort. Those who know how to contact the Vedic gods do so through specific sacrificial ceremonies, and having contacted these higher powers in nature, receive their goodwill and achieve greater success in life. When Shri Krishna Bhagavan says, here, success born of action comes quickly in the world of men, he means to bring home to Arjuna that whereas in the lower species, the evolution of the soul depends upon the upward moving currents of evolution in nature, in the human species, the soul has freedom of action, and that, therefore, the development of man depends upon how he acts and what he does. This verse establishes the necessity of action as such for success in the world, and at the same time shows the direction in which the activity must proceed. Jagute? Hemaji, you want me to do the comments?
I will do the comments, Anita ji.
Okay.
So in this shloka, what we are reading is about the effort in order to be successful in life. It is common knowledge that we need to make effort for success in life. And they do wise things like yajnas, and two types of yajnas. One is physical level and the other is on the level of mental level, that is TM. And then with these yajnas, we contact higher powers, that is the intelligent people who put effort into success. And they contact higher powers in nature and receive their blessings. Another point that, in the commentary, Maharishi is bringing up in a subtle way, I found, is that because we have this human life, we have the ability to move upwards in evolution, and we have all the equipment. And in the commentary, it was mentioned that animals don't have that kind of nervous system, but only humans have that ability to evolve and reach higher states of consciousness. And Maharishi pointed out that it's a very, very fortunate thing that we all have a human body. And so that's one is human body. And there are two other things that are also important as getting a human body. This is from Shankaracharya's Viveka Chudamani. In that he says, Durlabham trayameva tad devanugraha hetukam manushyatvam mumukshatvam mahapurusha samshrayaha. So Shankaracharya mentioned there are three things which are rare indeed, and they are due to the grace of God. One is, as we have already mentioned, human birth. Second is longing for liberation. Not all people want moksha. Some people think, oh, I'm enjoying life. I don't mind coming back, in my next birth and all that. So this longing for moksha, some people have. And because they have this wish for moksha, they are able to rise to higher states of consciousness. So that is also rare, Shankaracharya said. And the third thing that is rare and very difficult to find is to get a good guru. We all are extremely fortunate to have Maharishi as our guru. So that tells us that we have had some, good fortune. And that's why we have Maharishi as our guru. So the scientific research on this shloka, the phrase success born of action comes quickly in the world of men. This phrase is taken into account. This study shows that with regular practice of transcendental meditation, employees showed improved job performance in comparison with the controls. They showed greater ability to achieve more with less effort. Remember, Maharishi always said, do less and accomplish more. And he was saying it, 60 years ago? And now this scientific world, they are finding about it with the scientific studies. And the study also shows greater organizational ability and decision-making ability, increased ability to think and act efficiently in present, and also increased productivity. Okay. So, any questions?
Hemati, could we add a point in this verse?
Yeah.
That the people who seek into these material activities and worship the celestial God, they do get the awards. They are manifested quickly because they pray to God and they ask for certain boons and they get it. But ultimately, they are saying these are only temporary. But the people who are devoted through soul and they have the freedom of action to do how they act and how they, in which direction they go. And here I think the direction is meant for transcendental meditation.
Yeah. What you said is right. When people do yajnas, like I said, there are around two levels. One is on a physical level where you are putting ahuti, ghee into the fire and all that. That definitely and absolutely gives very good results, no doubt about that, because they're, doing according to the Vedic method and doing with mantras. And so it definitely has a benefit. But if people don't do transcendental meditation, which is a subtle level of yajna, then they're not able to transcend and not able to get the experience of Atma, transcendental consciousness. So they get some reward, but not full reward. So that's what when I said yajna is done on two levels. One is on physical and one is on a mental subtle level. So both give results. Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or shall we move on to the next shloka?
Gurudev Hema.
Maria.
Thank you. I'm just thinking about these rare qualities.
Yeah.
And it's also rare to be able to realize that these things are rare. I often think that about even air and water and all of that, how fundamental certain things are in our life, and to be able to be aware that it is so precious. And I feel that through TM, one is able to have that wakefulness in order to be able to appreciate that which is rare.
Mm-hmm.
That is true, because with our regular practice of transcendental meditation, and as we are rising in higher states of consciousness, what's happening? Our perception is getting refined, especially after CC, after cosmic consciousness. Maharishi made it very clear. It is your heart that expands. And when your heart expands, your heart expands, perception is refined. So when you see a full moon, you go, how beautiful the full moon is. And somebody else may just walk by and never even notice full moon or never even appreciate it. And because your perception is so refined, you're appreciating nature, you're appreciating the celestial values. And then what happens? That goes up to the creator. Then the creator says, oh, somebody is appreciating me so much. Let me see who it is. So the creator comes in front of you and gives her darshan. So that's the value of transcendental meditation. So the other aspect of yajna on the subtle level. That point is a very valid point, Maria.
Thank you, Hemati.
Okay. So shall we move on to the next shloka, the 13? I will read the Sanskrit and English translation, and then we'll continue with the English commentary. Sunita, can I? Okay, very good. Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam गुणकर्म विभागशः तस्य कर्तारमपि मां विद्य कर्तारमव्ययम्. चातुर्वर्ण्यं मया सृष्टम् गुणकर्म विभागशः तस्य कर्तारपि मां विद्धि अकर्तारमव्ययम्. The fourfold order was created by me. According to the divisions of gunas and actions. Though I am the author, know me to be the non-doer, immutable. The reason I read like this is, it is Maharishi's instruction that we read each shloka 3 times. So I read one time normal in Sanskrita, and then Maharishi said we should pause after each pada. Then the vibrations are sinking in, and it has a profound influence on our physiology. So that's why second time I stop after each pada. And when I read English translation, I paused after each phrase for a few seconds. That way, again, the meaning is sinking in. And that also has a profound effect on our brain physiology. Anitaji, please go ahead reading.
The entire creation is the interplay of the 3 gunas. When the primal equilibrium of sattva, rajas, and tamas is disturbed, they begin to interact and creation begins. All 3 must be present in every aspect of creation because with creation, the process of evolution begins. And this needs 2 forces opposed to each other and one that is complementary to both. Sattva and tamas are opposed to each other, while rajas is the force complementary to both. Tamas destroys and created state, sattva creates a new state, while the first is being destroyed. In this way, through the simultaneous processes of creation and destruction, the process of evolution is carried on. The force of rajas plays a necessary but neutral part in creation and destruction. It maintains a bond between the forces of sattva and tamas. Thus, all 3 gunas are necessary for any state of manifested life. The fourfold order, mathematically, the 3 gunas may combine with each other in 6 possible ways. Sattva dominates rajas is secondary. Sattva dominates tamas is secondary. Rajas dominates sattva is secondary. Rajas dominates tamas is secondary. Tamas dominates sattva is secondary. And tamas dominates rajas is secondary. Combinations 2 and 5 are not possible because of the contrast in the nature of sattva and tamas. Thus, the 3 gunas have only 4 possible combinations. This is the fourfold order in creation. Every species, whether vegetable, animal, or human, is divided into 4 categories according to the 4 divisions of the gunas, which determine the natural mode of activity of each category. Non-doer Activity in all fields of life is caused by the three gunas. The ultimately universal being is the basis of the gunas. Therefore, it is said that the I of the unmanifested, omnipresent, immutable being is the creator. He is the creator and at the same time ever remaining established in his own being is uninvolved, the non-doer. This may be further clarified by an example. Oxygen and hydrogen ions combine to give rise to the properties of water. The water freezes, giving rise to the properties of ice. In these different states of gas, liquid, and solid, the basic elements oxygen and hydrogen remain the same. Inasmuch as they are the fundamental material from which gas, water, and ice are formed, oxygen and hydrogen could be said to have created these different substances, but because they remain oxygen and hydrogen through their various stages, they could be said to be non-doing. Such is the state of ultimate being lying at the base of all creation. It is the author and the remaining unchanged. It is the non-doer and immutable. When Shri Krishna Bhagavan says, know me to be non-doer, he is asking Arjuna to take his mind to the transcendental state of consciousness beyond the field of three gunas and gain first-hand knowledge of the source of creation, to see for himself that absolute silence is the creative energy and intelligence of eternal being, the fountainhead of all creative energy and intelligence in the relative field. In this verse, Shri Krishna Bhagavan takes upon himself the authorship of creation, at the same time declaring his absolute immutable nature. Being almighty, he is able to maintain his non-involved status even while giving rise to creation. The next verse further clarifies this idea. Thank you, Jagudev.
Thank you, Anitaji. So in this very important shloka, there are two main points. One is Chaturvarnyam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. Sri Krishna Bhagavan is saying that he created the fourfold order according to the division of gunas and actions. So that's one point. And the second point he's saying is that though he created it, he is non-doer, akartaram and avyayam. So in order to understand this shloka, the knowledge of three gunas is absolutely necessary. So we will review the three gunas first briefly, because we all have studied about gunas extensively in chapter 2 and 3, but still it would be good to review a little bit. So the three gunas are sattva, rajas, and tamas. And the entire creation is the interplay of these three gunas. The gunas interact with each other. And as a result, 4 categories are created. Anitaji just now said how sattva, rajas, and tamas, how the 4 categories are created when they combine with each other. When sattva dominates and rajas is secondary, they fall into the category of the learned, and their function is to give knowledge. They're called Brahmins. Now, what are the qualities of sattva? They are peacefulness, balance, harmony, goodness, purity, creativity, positivity, virtue, universalism, and they are constructive. So that is the first category where sattva dominates. When rajas dominates and sattva is secondary, they fall into the category of kshatriya. They are warriors. And their duty is to maintain law and order. So they have to be strong. Rajas is the quality of movement, dynamism, passion, drivenness. It's neither good nor bad, or sometimes it can be either good or bad. So that's the second category, that is kshatriyas. When rajas dominates and tamas is secondary, they fall into the category of vaishya. If you notice, there is no sattva here, or it is very little. They are in charge of commerce, finance, and economy, etc. And the last category is when tamas dominates and rajas is secondary. They fall into the category of shudra. So tamas is the quality of dullness, laziness, ignorance, delusion, imbalance, disorder, chaos, anxiety, impurity, negativity, violence. So this is fourfold order. It is based on the function and action of which gunas predominate. So if sattva predominates, one behaves in certain way. If rajas predominates or tamas predominate, they behave in a different way. That's because of the quality and function of the gunas. These gunas are not static. It doesn't mean that if you have, some sattva and less rajas and tamas, it may not stay that way if you do things that are not sattvic. Same thing, if you have more tamas or rajas, doesn't mean you stay that way. You can still develop sattva. That is the beauty of these gunas, which are, to some extent, are under our control, and I'll tell you how to increase sattva. So these are not static. They are always changing. And with Maharishi technologies, we can rise to higher states of consciousness by increasing sattva. And how do we do that? By doing TM regularly, it increases sattva tremendously. By listening to Vedic chanting, by eating foods that are sattvic foods. So all that will increase sattva. So even if you are in the category where you have little sattva, more of tamas and rajas, you can still rise to a very high level of sattva. And that's very encouraging. Nobody need to get discouraged that they fall into one of the four categories that I have mentioned. So this topic of gunas comes up again in chapter 14 and 18. And we'll discuss when we get there. But 18th chapter gives very beautiful points about these three gunas. And I want to briefly touch upon it because it's very relevant right here, what it is said in 18th chapter. In 18th chapter, verses 42 to 44, the qualities and functions are described like this. It is similar to what we just read. Sattva means tranquility, restraint, austerity, purity, patience, integrity, knowledge, wisdom, and belief in a hereafter. These are the intrinsic qualities of Brahmins. Here, Satoguna is dominant and Rajoguna is secondary. Now we move on to the next category, that is Kshatriya. Valor, strength, fortitude, skill in weaponry, resolve never to retreat from battle, large-heartedness in charity, and leadership abilities. These are the natural qualities of Kshatriya. And here, Rajas dominates and Sattva is secondary. Now we move on to the next category, that is Vaishya. Agriculture, dairy farming, and commerce are the natural works for those with the qualities of Vaishyas. Here, Rajas dominates and Tamas is secondary. So the next category is Shudras. Serving through work is the natural duty for those with the qualities of Shudras. And I just read the qualities of Tamas. Here, Tamas dominates and Rajas is secondary. So this is about the gunas, their qualities and their functions. So that is the first point Sri Krishna Bhagavan made, and that he said, I created this fourfold order based upon the gunas that one possesses. So the second point in this shloka is, he said, even though he is the creator, he remains uninvolved. So he is non-doer, akarta. So we have discussed this non-involvement many times, but I will briefly say that again because it's a very important point. Sri Krishna Bhagavan is a non-doer because all activity is carried on by the gunas. But the ultimate universal being is the basis of the gunas. So he remains as the basis, and on the surface is the activity of the gunas. So he's separate from them. So he's not involved. He is the creator, and yet at the same time, he is non-doer because he is established in his own being. So I'll briefly talk about the scientific research on this study. And in this shloka, the phrase akartaram avyayam, non-doer and immutable, this is taken into consideration. This study shows high levels of EEG. And we have seen in many studies in the past how EEG coherence increases. So I'll keep it very brief. The EEG coherence is measured during transcendental meditation. And this coherence correlated with clearer experience of pure consciousness. Also, there was marked reduction in respiration rate with periodic natural breath suspension. Okay, so I'll stop here and take any questions.
Hemaji, it's not the addition of any point, but it is a very appealing point to which I understand it more clearly as you explained, that Shri Krishna Bhagavan established in being, and by being established in being, he is away from the gunas, because then you are away from the activity. That is why he is the non-doer.
Yes. Because you see, when you transcend, what's
Yeah.
happening is we are going beyond the three gunas. We have left the realm of relative because gunas
Right.
are only in the relative. In
Right.
the absolute, there are no gunas.
That's right.
That is the whole point about transcending, most practical and most essential for rising in higher states of consciousness. You have to go beyond the gunas.
Right.
So when you go beyond, you are experiencing your inner self, period, nothing else. And that way, gunas are on the surface and you are in the self. And so you're not in touch with them. So that's why you're non-doer.
Right.
Okay, very good. Any other questions?
Jai Gurudev, Hema.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's just an eternal question about how does this spill over into society as social values then, if it's really related to the caste system? How it's not intended to be related to the caste system, right? It's just describing certain characteristics of a person and how you can rise or fall.
Yeah. Excuse me. Maharishi. Maharishi did not use the word caste in the commentary. I took the liberty to add it because it's obvious, especially in Bharat, these 4 categories means 4 castes. And there is a lot of misunderstanding about the caste system. Some people, all people in all 4 categories, some of them are unhappy. Sometimes Brahmins are unhappy. They say, why this inequality? Why I should be, considered to be great compared to the other 3? I don't agree with that. And sometimes Shudras are mad. Why you put Brahmins on the pedestal and look down upon Shudra? But the real point is that it's not Shudra or Brahmin because they are Brahmins, they are great, and because they are Shudras, you are not great. It's not like that at all. Maharishi described very beautifully. Anybody who possesses the qualities of Sattva Guna, where Sattva Guna predominates and Rajas is secondary, they are Brahmins because they have all those qualities. And because the 4th category, Shudra, they don't have those sattvic qualities. And so they're not able to function on that level. So they are called as Shudra. But there is a good news. And that good news is that, remember I said that these gunas are not stagnant. They're always moving. So when a Shudra develops sattvic qualities, he becomes a Brahmin. There is no doubt about that. What is the definition of Brahmin? I will read it. This is from Manusmriti. One who is established in self, with capital Self, with Atma Jnana, knowledge of Atma, who follows his dharma, who does tapas, austerity, and one who is well versed in Vedic knowledge. He's balanced. He has steady intellect. He's Stita Prajna. And he has compassion with a pure heart. Because he is called as Sarva Bhuta Hiterataha. Means he delights in helping other people. And he is humble. If a Shudra possesses all these qualities, or at least some of them, he is a Brahmin and not a Shudra. And this comes from Manusmriti. I didn't make it up. And so it is possible for people in these categories to move from one category to the other category. That is the biggest blessing the whole mankind has in this entire universe, that the technique that Maharishi had given us is a universal technique. He never said a Shudra cannot learn this. But when you go to the other sampradayas, they say, unless you stop eating meat, unless you stop drinking alcohol, unless you are a Brahmin or something like that, we cannot give you a mantra. We cannot initiate you into any spiritual path. We never say that. When you come to learn TM, we don't ask, what is your category? What is your caste? We just teach to every single person that comes to learn TM. How kind and compassionate of Maharishi to do this to the whole world. See, that's where people are misunderstanding. They misunderstand even what Maharishi is saying. So that's why I wanted to make this point very clear. So what it says in Manusmriti, I quote Manusmriti, Janmano jayate Shudraha, means by birth, everybody is a Shudra. Now, the verse continues, it says, Karmano jayate Vipraha. What does that mean? That means by action, one becomes a Vipra. Vipra means Brahmin. So, one who is born in Brahmin family has to follow Karma Yoga. That is, he has to do transcendental meditation morning and evening, study Vedas, do Yagyas, and do all the things that are, prescribed by the Shastras for him. Then he is a real Brahmin. If he is not doing all these, then he has no right to call himself as a Brahmin. Now, I'll give an example. Recently, there was a conversation going on between two people. One is a Brahmin, one was a non-Brahmin. And the other non-Brahmin, I mean, in India, they directly ask you what caste you are, and they don't mind. We don't feel very bad about it. So the non-Brahmin said, oh, I don't know what category you are. He said, oh, I am Brahmin. And this non-Brahmin, he said, oh, I thought, Brahmins don't eat meats or drink alcohol, but you do that. Do you do some meditation? He said, no. Do you study Vedas? He said, no. Then the non-Brahmin said, then these are the qualities of a Brahmin. How can you call yourself Brahmin? And this non-Brahmin was doing every single thing prescribed by the Vedas. Do TM morning and evening, study Vedas, listen to Vishnu Sahasranama, pranayam, yogasana, you name it. And he's a vegetarian, never drinks a drop of alcohol. So this non-Brahmin who was having this conversation with a Brahmin who was born into a family of Brahmin, his good fortune, he was born into it. But if you don't follow what is prescribed for Brahmins, they have no right to call themselves Brahmin. So you see, it's just not the privilege to be a Brahmin. You have to take the responsibility to have the knowledge, number one. Second thing, to share that knowledge with people around you. That's your job. And if you're not doing that, then you are not entitled to that title of Brahmin. So these are some pretty strong words I used, but I had to do that to make it very clear, the misunderstanding that is there. It's a hot topic. And I would like every single one of you to understand the basis for this fourfold categories and the fourfold caste system, which had caused many, many, very undesirable incidents in the past. Maria, did I?
Thank you, Hemati. There's so much to discuss on this that I think, yeah, it's beautiful what you say. It just seems to be upside down. It's still a mystery how it all came to be established as as a categorization. It's more the result of one's being that one gets that title. Even a title itself seems irrelevant, really.
Right.
But
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, very good.
You're welcome. In the interest of time, I think we should move on. But since this is a very important topic, I will take any other questions if anybody else has. And I want to make sure that every single one of you understand what and how these categories are made and what Maharishi is trying to bring out with this shloka. Okay. So we'll move on to the next shloka. Manish ji,
जी दीदी
आप सुनना मैं करती.
जी
Sunita,
दीदी
Sunita, next verse, please. Okay. Can you make it a little bit bigger? Like bigger print. Okay. Namam karmani limpanti, name karma phale spruha, iti mam yobhijanati, karma bhirna sabadhyate. Namam karmani limpanti. Name karma phale spruha. Iti mam yobhijanati. Karma bhirna sabadhyate. Actions do not involve me. Nor have I any longing for the fruit of action. He who truly knows me, thus, is not bound by actions. Jayakute?
Sunita, continue.
Sunita, unmute and read, please.
Yes,
Sunita,
Jayakute.
anyone who has God consciousness, constant awareness of the source of creation, will know by his own experience that it is transcendental in nature. That is why the Lord says, Krishna Bhagavan says, he who truly knows me, thus is not bound by actions. Truly knows me thus means knows me completely. Complete knowledge means knowledge on the basis of experience as well as understanding. Actions do not involve me. It will be recalled from verse that, one second. Give me a minute now. I'll just.
Okay.
Sunita, I'll continue. You join me later with it. Right? Right, Hemaji?
Yes, ma'am. I have come back. One second.
Good. Come. Actions do not
The
involve
screen
me.
just disappeared, so I had a problem. Okay, shall I continue?
Yes, go ahead.
Actions do not involve me. It will be recalled from verse 28 of chapter 3 that it is the gunas which act upon the gunas, while being remains uninvolved. Again, it will be recalled from verse 9 of the present chapter that the activity of the Lord Sri Krishna Bhagavan is not worldly, not within the field of the gunas. It is divine and takes place in his eternal freedom. The nature of the Lord Sri Krishna Bhagavan as absolute has been brought out in verse 6. The uninvolved nature of the Sri Krishna Bhagavan is therefore perfectly clear. Nor have I any longing for the fruit of action. Sri Krishna Bhagavan has already expressed his eternal state of contentment in chapter 3, verse 22. He who truly knows me thus means he who has thoroughly known my nature as absolutely uninvolved with actions as well as with their fruits. The word truly is highly important. It means knowing by participation, indicating that a man has gained God consciousness. The expression, nor have I any longing for the fruit of action, brings out by implication a feature common to the manifested and unmanifested spheres of life. Both eternally continue to be by virtue of the eternal nature of the Almighty and Supreme Lord. Precise knowledge of the non-involvement of the Supreme in the midst of the vast activity of unlimited creation can only dawn on the basis of one's own experience of the self as uninvolved with the field of activity. Here is the sequence of realization of the true nature of the Lord Sri Krishna Bhagavan. First, one realizes one's own self as separate from activity and thus gaining knowledge of the true nature of oneself. Surrenders all activity to Sri Krishna Bhagavan and takes refuge in him. Verse 10. Then, in unity with him, one knows him in his true nature as uninvolved with activity and without any longing for the fruits of action. This knowledge of the true nature of God results in eternal freedom from the binding influence of action. That is why Sri Krishna Bhagavan says, he who truly knows me thus is not bound by actions. This verse presents one of the most important teachings of Sankhya. It reveals the uninvolved nature of Sri Krishna Bhagavan and simply through the knowledge of this fact promises liberation from bondage. This is the strength of Sankhya, which offers liberation through the path of knowledge. A similar teaching was contained in verse 28 of chapter 3. But there, the argument was in terms of knowledge of the three gunas, the knowledge of the relative field of activity, whereas in this verse, it springs from the knowledge of the essential nature of the divine being, personified by Sri Krishna Bhagavan, who is beyond the relative and the absolute, beyond the unity of being and the diversity of creation, but holds within himself the fullness of both. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you, Sunita. In this shloka, there are three main points. First one is Namam karmani limpanti, means actions do not involve me. We know that when we transcend, we experience ourselves as separate from activity. And so we are not involved with the actions. We just talked about it in the previous verse. And if we recall, we have studied about this point in chapter 3, 28 verse. Which say, Guna guneshu vartante iti matvan gunas act upon gunas while being remains uninvolved. And so we know this from sorry. In the 9th chapter, though, sorry, the verse, this chapter, not 9th chapter. In the 9th shloka, Shloka said, Janma karma chame divyam, means my activity is divine because, and it is not in the field of the guna. And also in verse 6, he said, Ajopi san avyayatma, the absolute and uninvolved nature of Sri Krishna Bhagavan is explained in that verse 6. So that is the first point, that he is not involved with the gunas. The second point in this shloka is, Name karma phale spruha, means I do not have any longing for fruit of action. Why? Because the eternal contentment that you achieve when you transcend and experience Atma, you are content. So why do you care for anything more? You want something more when you're not satisfied. That's why we have desires. I want this, I want that. But when you experience fulfillment, you're completely content. So you don't care for, to get anything more. And this is also explained in 22nd shloka, which we have discussed in 3rd chapter. Name karmasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kanchana. So he's saying that there is nothing worth attaining that had not been attained. And because he's content, he doesn't have to do anything else. And you're not looking for any fruit of action. So that's how it works. Now, the key point is transcending, as we have discussed. So the third point in the shloka is, he who truly knows me does. Itimam yobhijanati. So Maharishi said the word truly is important. Why? Because here truly means, it indicates that one has to know by experience as well as understanding. Now, many can read the shloka and understand the meaning on intellectual level. But when you transcend, experience the inner self, Atma, when you have the experience of Atma, then your experience is complete. Otherwise, you only have one side of it, and that is intellectual understanding. It's like you hear about a mango and you think, oh, sounds like a mango is a good fruit. But unless you eat it, you will not have the experience of how mango tastes. It is exactly like this. So we will begin when we get to the 38th shloka in 4th chapter. Another very beautiful shloka is coming up. It is Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham Pavitramiha Vidyate. And in this, we get a beautiful description of what really Jnana means, that experience of knowledge, what it means and how we get it. So we will wait until that. So now I will give a brief description of the scientific study on this shloka. In this study, the phrase karma bhirna sabhajyate is taken into account. And this study shows that regular practitioners of transcendental meditation showed significant increase in field independence. indicating broader comprehension with increasing ability to focus attention. So now I want to explain what this little bit academic terms, this scientific jargon. What does it mean really when you say there is increase in field independence? What does it mean in common, regular, normal English? It means that while you are focused on a task, you don't lose awareness of the big picture. So you are aware of what's going on in the background, around you and everything. At the same time, you are able to focus on the specific task that you're doing. For example, let's say you are in a meeting and you're conducting the meeting. You are talking, people in the meeting are talking, and some people talk too much, some are having fun and all that. And while all this is going on, sometimes some people may lose track of time, especially when they're having fun and having, enjoying the meeting. Or sometimes, it may be, hot discussion, whatever is going on. Sometimes people get drawn into it and they are completely one with the meeting. So they lose track of time. But if you are enlightened or if you are in higher states of consciousness, you are aware of the time factor. You are focused on the meeting, what the discussion is going on, good or bad, doesn't matter. But still, you are aware of the time factor. And then you're saying, oh, okay, we have to move. We have had enough discussion on this point. Now we have only so much time. And he goes, I want to start on time and stop on time. People have other things to do. So for so much time left, we can only discuss so much. So we have to move on like that. But if you don't have that ability to be aware of the time factor, then you will discuss only half of the things in the meeting, and then you have to stop the meeting or extend the meeting, which sometimes people don't like because they have other things to do. So that is how it works. So that ability of increase in field independence comes with the regular practice of transcendental meditation. Okay, so I'll stop here now and take any questions. No questions? So shall we move on then? Okay, so we'll do brief group meditation and then Maharishi will recite the chapter 4. Let's close eyes and sit comfortably. जय गुरुदेव। जय गुरुदेव। मनीष जी, कृपया चौथा अध्याय का पारायण करना, फिर उसके बाद में शांति पाठ करना।
जी दीदी। ओम यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति देव्यैस्तवैर्वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनसदैः गायन्ति यं सामगा ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः। अथ श्री चतुर्थोऽध्यायः। श्रीभगवानुवाच इमं विवस्वते योगं प्रोक्तवाहनमव्ययम् विवस्वान्मनवे प्राह मनुरुक्ष्वा कवे ब्रवीत् एवं परम्परा प्राप्तम् इमं राजर्षयो विदुः सकाले नेह महता योगो नष्टः परन्तप स एवायं मया तेद्य योगः प्रोक्तः परातनः भक्तोऽसि मे सखा चेति रहस्यं ह्येतदुत्तमम्। अर्जुन उवाच अपरं भवतो जन्म परं जन्म विवस्वतः कथमेतद्विजानीयाम् त्वमादौ प्रोक्तवानिति। श्रीभगवानुवाच बहूनि मे व्यतीतानि जन्मानि तव चार्जुन तान्यहं वेद सर्वाणि न त्वं वेत्थ परन्तप अजोऽपि सञ्जयात्मा भूतानामीश्वरोऽपि सन् प्रकृतिं स्वामधिष्ठाय सम्भवाम्यात्ममायया यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानम् अधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम्। परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे। जन्म कर्म च मे दिव्यम् एवं यो वेत्ति तत्त्वतः त्यक्त्वा देहं पुनर्जन्म नैति मामेति सोऽर्जुन। वीतरागभयक्रोधा मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः बहवो ज्ञानतपसा पूता मद्भावमागताः ये यथा मा प्रपद्यन्ते तांस्तथैव भजाम्यहम्। मम वर्तमानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः काङ्क्षतः कर्मणां सिद्धिं यजन्त इह देवताः क्षिप्रं हि मानुषे लोके सिद्धिर्भवति कर्मजा चातुर्वर्ण्यं मया सृष्टं गुणकर्म विभागशः तस्य कर्तारमपि मां विद्य कर्तारमव्ययम् न मां कर्माणि लिम्पन्ति न मे कर्मफले स्पृहा इति मां योऽभिजानाति कर्मभिर्न स बध्यते एवं ज्ञात्वा कृतं कर्म पूर्वैरपि मुमुक्षुभिः कुरु कर्मैव तस्मात् त्वं पूर्वैः पूर्वतरं कृतं किं कर्मेति कवयोऽप्यत्र मोहिताः तत्ते कर्म प्रवक्ष्यामि यज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात् कर्मणो ह्यपि बोधव्यं च विकर्मणः अकर्मणश्च बोधव्यं गहना कर्मणो गतिः कर्मण्यकर्म यः पश्येत् कर्मणि स कर्म यः स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु स युक्तः कृष्णकर्मकृत् यस्य सर्वे समारम्भाः कामसङ्कल्पवर्जिताः ज्ञानाग्निदग्धकर्माणं तमाहो पण्डितं बुधाः त्यक्त्वा कर्मफलासङ्गं नित्यतृप्तो निराश्रयः कर्मण्यभिप्रवृत्तोऽपि नैव किञ्चित् करोति सः यथा आत्मा त्यक्तसर्वपरिग्रहः शारीरं केवलं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम् दृच्छालाभसन्तुष्टो द्वन्द्वातीतो विमत्सरः समः सिद्धावसिद्धि न विद्यते कृतसङ्गस्य मुक्तस्य ज्ञानावस्थितचेतसः यज्ञायाचरतः कर्म समग्रं प्रपलीयते ब्रह्मार्पणं ब्रह्महविर्ब्रह्माग्नौ ब्रह्मणाहुतम् ब्रह्मैव तेन गन्तव्यं ब्रह्मकर्म समाधिना दैवमेवापरे यज्ञं योगिनः पर्युपासते ब्रह्माज्ञावपरे यज्ञं यज्ञेनैवोपजुह्वति श्रोत्रादीनीन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयानन्या इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति सर्वाणीन्द्रियकर्माणि प्राणकर्माणि च परे आत्मसंयमयोगाग्नौ जुह्वति ज्ञानदीपिते द्रव्ययज्ञास्तपोयज्ञा योगयज्ञास्तथा परे स्वाध्यायज्ञानयज्ञाश्च यतयः संस्थितव्रताः अपाने जुह्वति प्राणं प्राणे पानं तथा परे प्राणापानगतिरुद्ध्वा प्राणायामपरायणाः अपरे निहताहाराः प्राणाप्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वेऽप्येते यज्ञविदो यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो यान्ति ब्रह्म सनातनम् नायं लोकोऽस्ति यज्ञस्य कुतोऽन्यः कुरु सत्तमा एवं बहुविधा यज्ञा वितता ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विद्धि तान् सर्वनेवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे श्रेयान् द्रव्यमयाज्ञान् ज्ञानयज्ञः परन्तप सर्वं कर्माखिलं पार्थ ज्ञाने परिसमाप्यते तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्षन्ति ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः यं ज्ञात्वा न पुनर्मोहम् एवं यास्यसि पाण्डवा येन भूतान शेषेण चक्षुष्यात्मन्यथो मयि अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः सर्वं ज्ञानप्लवेनैव प्रजनं सन्तरस्यसि यथैधांसि समिद्धोऽग्निर्भस्मसात् कुरुतेऽर्जुन ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते तथा न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते तत्स्वयं योगसंसिद्धः कालेनात्मनि विन्दति सिद्धावान् लभते ज्ञानं तत्परः संयतेन्द्रियः ज्ञानं लब्ध्वा परां शान्तिमचिरेणाधिगच्छति अग्निश्चाश्रद्दधानश्च संशयात्मा विनश्यति नायं लोकोऽस्ति न परो न सुखं संशयात्मनः योगसन्न्यस्तकर्माणं ज्ञानसञ्छिन्न संशयम् आत्मवन्तं न कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय तस्मात् ज्ञानसमुद्भूतं हृष्ठं ज्ञानासीनात्मनम् तस्मात् ज्ञानसम्भूतं हृष्ठं ज्ञानासीनात्मनः छित्त्वैनं संशयं योगम् आतिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ भारत ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे ज्ञानकर्मसन्न्यासयोगो नाम चतुर्थोऽध्यायः श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु हरे ॐ शान्तिरन्तरिक्षगुं शान्तिः पृथिवी शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिः वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्विश्वे देवाः शान्तिः सर्वगुं शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः सामा शान्तिरेधि जतो यतः समीहसे ततो नो अभयं कुरु सन्नः कुरु प्रजाभ्यो भयन्नः पाशव्यः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव
Thank you, Manishji, for beautiful recitation, and Anita and Sunita for reading. And thank you all for joining. All of you can come on
Jai Gurudev,
video
Hema.
now. Jai Gurudev. And happy to see old friends, Bela and Anne and Maria. And we have some new friends join. Welcome to Rituja ji and B.S. Guleria ji and Lakshmi ji. Happy to see you join our Gita Satsang. Hope you enjoyed. So we will end now. And Jai Gurudev. That I'm not able to see who that is. But Jai Gurudev to Jai Gurudev. So we'll meet next Friday, same time. Jai Gurudev.
जय गुरुदेव दीदी
Jai Gurudev. Sunita, you can end the meeting, please.
You are the host, Hema. You can